Welcome to the Manufacturing Money Room with host Tolani Lawson. Tolani is an experienced CFO who works with manufacturing businesses to bring clarity to their numbers, especially when cash feels tight and decisions feel heavy. These are the conversations that usually stay behind closed doors. Until now, it's time to step into the Manufacturing Money Room.
Let me start with a question. When was the last time your business said no to work? And not because you couldn't do it, but because you chose not to. For most growing manufacturing businesses, the answer is not very often. Because growth brings opportunities, right? You get new customers, new products, and new requirements. So each one on its own makes sense to accept. A customer comes with a new requirement and tells you, I need this exception. You're thinking, oh, this is just for one customer, but your customer base is growing. You're getting new customers and you're getting requests for new products as well. But over time, something begins to change. The business becomes more complex. Now you have more SKUs to worry about. You have more variations and more exceptions. And while revenue grows, so does the cost of managing that complexity. Today, we're going to look at what I call complexity creep. One of the most expensive and least visible profit leaks in a growing business is the complexity creep. So we're going to look at different areas of this. Let's start with the accumulation problem. Complexity does not arrive based on one single decision. It accumulates over time or over several decision points. So I have one new product line, one customer specification, one exception for a key customer. And we always go with, oh, this is a key customer. This is a major customer for us. Each one is justified. Each one is rational. But over time, they start to layer on top of each other. And here is the key. Complexity starts to compound. It doesn't just add cost in one area of the business. It spreads across the entire business. So now you have more setup time and there is more scheduling variability. So you start to get away from what I call standardization. And you start to become specialist for every single order. So you have more engineering inputs, more coordination. And because each piece of complexity is small, the total cost of this is rarely measured directly. Let me give you a simple analogy. Imagine a restaurant. At the beginning, the menu is focused. You have a small number of dishes, let's say 5 dishes. The kitchen runs smoothly. Ingredients are predictable and execution is consistent. Now imagine the menu keeps expanding. You have more options and you have more customization. For each item, someone could come up with 10 different levels of customization. And now you're getting more special requests. Your customers are happy and there are more choices for them. But when you look behind the scenes and you go into the kitchen, things get harder. There are more ingredients to manage now and there are more variations in the preparation. So more chances for error. And there is a higher level of coordination required between staff. So your kitchen is working harder. In this case, your plant is working harder, but not necessarily more efficient. This is exactly what happens in manufacturing. As complexity increases, the system becomes harder to run. And complexity creep doesn't show up in just one single metric. It shows up as a friction. Sometimes as those setup times are increasing, you start to see that your scheduling becomes less predictable. Engineering is getting pulled into more decision points and exceptions become the norm. So you've moved away from standardization and now you're living in a world of exceptions. You start to hear things like, the job is a bit different. This customer requires special handling and we'll need to adjust how we do this. Individually, you're not thinking of any of these things as problems, but collectively, they create a system that is harder to operate. So just like in episode 3, we talked about how more effort becomes required to produce the same output. The hidden cost of saying yes is complexity creep. Here's the important shift in your business. Growth will often train a business owner or a business in general to say yes. You'd say yes to new work and new customization and new exceptions because this is driving revenue. But at the same time, every yes has a cost. You, as a business owner, thinking you're in a lesser advantage to negotiate, and the cost is not so visible to you that you don't start to put this into your pricing. The labor cost, the additional inventory, the additional time, and the additional overhead. All of these things are interacting between variables. But how are you implementing this in your pricing? There are certain metrics that you start to look at to see if your pricing is accurate. When you grow as a business, you start to look at things like labor efficiency, inventory requirements. So complexity doesn't just create its own cost, it amplifies the other three leak areas that we've discussed. And that's why it is so powerful. Just like other areas, complexity suffers from a visibility issue. Most businesses can tell you their total revenue and their total margin, but fewer people can tell you which products are the simplest versus the most complex, which customers require the most effort, and which work creates the most disruptions. You start to treat all revenue equally, but in reality, some revenue are easier to get and some are expensive. And without that distinction, you can grow in a way that makes the business harder to run, not easier. So let's talk about what good looks like. What I call intentional simplicity. Strong businesses don't eliminate complexity entirely because, let's face it, that's not realistic, but they manage it intentionally. They understand which products are core and which customers are aligned. They also see which work fits into their current system, and just as importantly, which ones do not. And then they make deliberate decisions about where to standardize and where to allow variations. So basically, you understand where to say no, because saying no is just as powerful, if not more powerful, than saying yes. And because simplicity is not about limiting growth, you have to think about enabling a scalable growth environment. So the point of simplicity is not to limit your growth and say no to all revenue coming your way, but to be able to say yes in a way that enables scalable growth. How can you scale? Let's talk about a practical starting point. If you want to see where complexity is affecting your business, start with something simple. Look at your product or customer base and ask which 20% of work creates 80% of the friction. Where do we see the most scheduling disruptions, the most engineering involvement, and the most exceptions? Then ask, are these also our most profitable areas? Because if they are not, you found a critical tension. And that's where complexity begins to erode performance. If you're using the manufacturing Profitleak diagnostic, turn to the complexity creep section and walk through these areas. What are your product and SKU expansion? How quickly have those expanded over time? Do you have a product life cycle? And what I mean by a product life cycle is as you bring new products on, are you taking those outdated products off the shelf, or are you still servicing them in low quantities at a reduced margin? And then look at areas like your customer specific variations. How many customers have special treatments? And how many different variations are you allowing into those customer specifications? Then operational exceptions. When are you going out of your operational standards to create exceptions? Do you have standards in all area of your business where anybody could come into your business and follow those standards? What you want to achieve is an alignment between complexity and profitability. So basically, you're looking for patterns. You're looking for areas where complexity is increasing and where it is justified. Is it simply being absorbed into your business without you even realizing it? That distinction really matters because it brings it all together. Now let's step back. We've looked at 4 different areas where profit leaks in your business. We started with price and discipline, where margin can be lost before you even start the work. Then we moved on to labor and efficiency drift, where effort rises faster than productivity. We talked about inventory and purchasing. These are the areas that tie up cash inside the system. And then now we're looking at complexity creep, where different levels of variation multiplies the cost across everything in your business. These are not separate problems, they're all interconnected. And we need to look at it in that way. Starting with weak pricing. Weak pricing makes complex work more dangerous because you have a complexity in your operations that has made your operations less efficient. That needs to be considered in your pricing mechanism. Inefficiency would also increase inventory pressure, this ties up cash. And together, they create a system that feels busy but is financially constrained. Growth shouldn't make your business feel fragile. Growth should make your business stronger. And that only happens when structure keeps pace with scale. Because profitability is not just about working harder, it's about clarity. Clarity in how you price, clarity in how you operate, clarity in how you manage your cash, and in what you choose to take on. If you haven't already done so, go back to the Manufacturing Profitleak diagnostic and complete the full workbook. This is not just an exercise, but it's a leadership conversation that you want to have with your entire team. And remember, the goal is not perfection, it's creating visibility into your own business. Once you can see clearly, you can act with confidence and you can make your business stronger. Thank you for listening to this series. If you want help working through what you've uncovered, that's exactly what I do. So feel free to reach out to us. I'll see you soon in the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks for spending time in the Manufacturing Money Room. If this episode gave you something to think about, let us know. Drop Tolani a voice note or leave a comment or a review. And hey, if you like what you heard, share it with your friends. If you didn't like what you heard, share it with your enemies. You'll find the links in the show notes to connect with Tolani, and if you want to watch the episode on YouTube, that's there as well. Join us next time in the Manufacturing Money Room, where it's all about better numbers, better decisions, better manufacturing.